It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, November 18th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is like a little more upset about that loss to the Bruins than I thought I would be.
Yeah, I have weird, strange feelings about it too.
All right, we're going to discuss those feelings on today's show.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam, but I don't know, the Twitterocalypse is
Tomorrow
happening.
you may not.
I know. I'm here with Russ Cohen, who for the time being is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. I would say follow the podcast on Instagram at
Yes.
Locked On Flyers. We have an account over there now. That's where you'll keep up to date with our episodes. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We are going to talk about last night's game versus the Boston Bruins. Then we are going to preview Saturday's game against the Montreal Canadiens. Locked On Flyers is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe everywhere so you get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're over on YouTube as well, so you can subscribe there. So we learned before the game that Patrick Brown was going to be activated and check back into the lineup. And not that I necessarily disagree with that decision if he's ready, but they suggested that he was going to be doing a rehab
I
stint, and
know.
that didn't happen. So to me, I just don't get why go through that kind of language for nothing.
No, I would rather have Kiefer Bellows in there. No offense to Patrick Brown. There's just too many Patrick Browns in the lineup. And you're not really going to get much offense out of him. Sure, you don't have to really worry about him for the 10 minutes he's out there. He didn't even do particularly great on faceoffs tonight. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It didn't make sense. It didn't vary the lineup enough. There were too many forecheckers in there.
Well, we did know that John Tortorella wanted some forechecking.
Yeah.
So he certainly got it. And, with Brown back in the lineup, that made the fourth line with him, Sedlak and Delorier, which honestly is an actual NHL fourth line. Like, I don't mind that combination of people. It's just the problem is that it seems to be at the expense of other people, like we've been talking about, even further up the lineup a little bit, with McEwen on the second line and Willman on the third line. Again, I don't really disagree with having Willman in the lineup overall. It's just where he is that's the problem.
Right. I agree with that. Me personally, I would sit Delorier. I mean, he played 7 minutes. There was a play where they tried to get on the rush the Flyers, and he's 3 steps behind. He just is not fitting in great. And we talked about that contract, and we talked about what he might look like on this team. And so far, he doesn't look great. I don't think they'd even miss him if he wasn't in there.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think, you've noticed him a few times where he's gotten into trouble, I think, and he's made a few offensive plays here and there to be like, oh, right, sometimes he shoots, but
Right.
it's not enough to, I really think, show the impact. And I don't know that Kiefer Bellows would be any better, especially up against the Boston Bruins. But at the same time, we've been harping on needing to know what you have and
Yeah,
getting
I
some
mean, you
consistent
can't sit
play.
him, play him, sit him, play him, sit him, play him, and expect to get much out of him. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem here right now is just there's not enough consistency to figure things out to a large degree. And when the Flyers get reactionary as opposed to proactive or consistent, that's where they run into trouble. And that's where the confidence starts to go away a little bit because nobody knows what they're role is at any given
Right.
time. And as much as Torts talks about accountability and that you'll always know where you stand with him, I just, I get that to a large
I don't
degree,
know. Does Kiefer
but
Bellows know where he really stands? I'm not sure about that.
I don't know, and that's the thing is that it's just confusing because the actions don't suggest that he really is trying to get to know these guys in a meaningful way in terms of giving them consistent time in consistent positions to succeed. I think both of those things are important to mention.
No, they are. I agree, especially with guys that you really don't know in Bellows. Like he's new there.
Yeah. And again, we mentioned when they picked him up and started putting him in the lineup that because he wasn't there at camp and all of that, he just wasn't part of that process to try and put together the team and trying to plug him in wherever he might fit for that night isn't going to give you the information you need on him. But I do want to kind of turn to this game because we're sort of digging into the existential questions of the team right now.
Well, they affected the game. They
They
did.
did. They really did. And coming into the game, we knew it was going to be an uphill climb
Hmm.
to even have a chance against Boston. And I got to say, I was actually quite pleased with the first half of the game. I
Sure.
thought that they did a really good job, you know, for the most part, keeping the Bruins at bay. And Carter Hart saved them when they didn't. And,
Hmm.
that's why they could come out of the first period with it scoreless. And it took a while for the Bruins to get that first goal.
Hmm.
And I think it was a really good effort. He was getting the forechecking that he wanted, but I think that, the two main things we said, they had to take advantage of Bruins' mistakes and they had to stay out of the box. They did not do those two things, and that's why
No.
they lost the game.
Yeah, they gave up 2 power play goals, which was inevitable. And, the again, having too many Sedlacks out there who only played 8 minutes, you know, these guys are good on a team when you have offense on a team. You want to put that line out there to change it up. When that's all you got, except for maybe your top line, then it gets kind of rough. You need more skill out there, and it's easy to say that hey, there's other guys in the AHL, they're not ripping it up, whatever, but there are higher skill guys in the AHL than are some that are in the NHL lineup, and whether you choose to play them or not, that's up to the coach. But again, when they were down 2-0, there's nobody watching this broadcast that thought they were going to win at that point.
No, I mean, we had our hopes up for about 13 seconds,
Right.
while
That's true.
Owen Tippett scored that goal.
And
And
that
it's
was a nice
actually,
goal.
it was a nice goal. It was a really good sequence. And it was, something that they had gotten close to earlier in the game. I think Lawton had a good chance. Konechny
Yeah.
had a good chance. And, they had at least 10 high danger chances in the game, which is a lot more than I honestly thought they would have gotten
Sure.
beforehand.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like they didn't have their opportunities. It was just a combination of Linus Olmark is really good. And so some of them weren't going to go. And B, they just didn't quite have the finish there. And,
Well, so what do we say when it gets to the third period and they're down? Do we say they ran out of gas or do we say they gave up? Because I saw a lot of pretty close to that with like 3-4 minutes to go in that game. And when the coach isn't even thinking about pulling the goalie, he kind of knows it too. So I'd like to just know what I'm supposed to say about that.
I think it's a fine line in a lot of cases, but it really felt like, especially in the last 2 to 3 minutes, that they gave up in the defensive zone, that they were
Yeah.
just doing scramble, like penalty kill in the worst way
Yeah.
kind of defense. And it wasn't going to give them any offensive opportunities. I think that, they did have so like I said, the first half of the game was great. I thought,
Yes.
even up against a much better team, but
Hmm.
it really did feel like after that third goal, like that made it, that made it 3-1, that just took all the steam
Yeah.
out of whatever they had. And I think that it gets a little dangerous when that starts to happen.
Yeah, I think it gets a little dangerous. I think it makes us wonder about like what the coach tells us about this team. If he's going to say he loves the battle on this team, that's great. But the battle only lasted a period and a half, and then the battle started to wane every just a little bit every few minutes until I mean Boston systematically broke them down. Again, you're not expecting the Flyers to win this game, but they're now in the midst of a losing streak where, as good as they looked at the beginning, they don't look so good now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more to say about this one, including talking about some individual performances that I think actually were pretty good in this one. And we will do that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports, and of course the NHL. We got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts like ours, you can find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Russ, I think that, we are a little doubtful about this team right
Mm-hmm.
now in terms of
Mm-hmm.
its ability to stick it out through a full 60 minutes in terms of, putting in the effort that John Tortorella wants. But I don't think that's true across the board. I think that's just kind of the, overall picture that we're getting. But I do
Mm-hmm.
want to call out some guys that actually looked good in this one. And the first one is Morgan Frost. I
Mm-hmm.
think he's really trying to like get out of the doghouse with Tortorella. And, he put in a real solid effort. We talked about him, at the tail end of last season that he was one of the few that could win faceoffs, and he did
Yep.
really well. Won 8 of 12, and he had a bunch of shots on goal, and I think really just kind of made the most of this one.
Yeah, I think he did too. He won that big face-off that got Tippett his goal. So on the power play, I would just we'd all like to see a little more offense. I think some of that has to do with line mates, but some of it definitely has to do with him. But on those other parts of his game, you can't really knock him.
No, I think, he's been put in defensive zone faceoffs a lot this season, and, he's doing the best he can. And I think up against a team like Boston, again, to win that many faceoffs and really give your team a shot to have a clean zone exit is really
Hmm.
important.
Yeah.
And that stood out to me a lot in this one. I think that, it didn't come out as flashy as the last go around, but Noah Cates, I think, is still playing really well. I think especially with Owen Tippett on his line, I
Hmm.
really like it. I think the two of them could really get some chemistry going beyond. You know, I, I wish they had a different line mate to
See,
maybe.
that's where they need Frost. Take Zach
Mhm.
McEwen off the line, put Frost. If you don't want Frost to be center, fine. If you want Cates to be the center, okay. If you want to switch it up, fine. But that's what they need to do. I mean, Zach McEwen goes down on the wing. He gets a great pass. He misses the net. Like, that's mostly what's going to
Mhm.
happen. Once in a while, he'll score. Sure, once in a blue moon. But if you put Frost on that line, you're going to get more offense. And I don't understand. I think, unfortunately, John Tortorella has this opinion that he's got to have like one of these big brutes on every line, and you don't. Cates does everything well away from the puck. He plays well defensively. He can be that guy that covers up some of those ills, but also it might help his offense if he had one other guy that could really catch him for a play once in a while.
Well, and Owen Tippett is no slouch either. I mean, he can take
No,
care
but
of
his
himself.
playmaking is menial. He's really a goal
Right.
scorer. So
Right.
that's where Cates could use that other sort of playmaker. Occasionally Tippett's going to make a pass, but he's still not really that guy. So that's where I think Frost would help. But there's a reluctance to do it, and I don't know why.
Yeah. And, I think defensively, Ivan Provorov continues to be pretty solid. He had a couple small moments, but again, this is Boston and with that
It's just too
perfection
much.
line, like, what are you going to do? Right. And, even when D'Angelo made a couple mistakes, I think Provy was there to clean it up
He
a couple
was.
of times.
And he
And
didn't have a great game, D'Angelo. He didn't.
no, he,
And
he
that's
did
what
not.
didn't help Provorov. Provorov, I felt like, did all he could. He even was pinching a lot on offense to try and really get something going
Yes.
there because he's been able to do that in the past and chip in with some goals. He tried everything. I just felt like there was nothing else he could do. Like you said, he was just outmanned. If he had, if D'Angelo were a second pairing guy and they had a better guy with Provorov, it could help a little bit for sure. But it wouldn't have won this game.
No, but I just wanna make sure we acknowledge that effort he's putting
Oh
in,
yeah,
and his game has gotten so much better this season. I'm yeah, again, I think I echo your sentiment here that I just wish he had a better defensive partner on
yeah.
the defensive side of things. I mean, we know what D'Angelo attempts to do offensively, and that's great and all, but when Provy is spending more time than he should cleaning up messes, that prevents him from, maybe getting up and having even more chances, from an offensive perspective and contributing a lot more on that side of things.
It does, and I kind of feel bad. I don't think the coach ever really acknowledges him either.
Well, that's a whole other thing, but
Yeah,
we are acknowledging him, and I
we
think
are.
that's what is important.
That is
So,
true.
kudos to you, Ivan Provorov, and your dog Drake, because we love both of you.
We do.
But yeah, the rest of the team defensively is just like holding on for dear life, is what I
Yeah, I
would
thought
say.
Ristolainen actually had a pretty good game. He was physical. I thought he made plays. Again, Nick Seeler. Just going to shake my head why he's still in the lineup. I would rather have Zamula over Nick Seeler. I'd rather, because I at least feel like there's better puck movement there. And because Seeler, especially, a dangerous thing that he does, I know he's got a couple goals and, great. Everybody gets a couple. But when he shoots wildly and it goes out the other end, they almost can't recover if that puck goes the other way. And he almost did that a couple of times tonight. And he shouldn't be shooting the puck wildly. He really shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's something that the Flyers have gotten into the habit of over the last couple of years that they've mostly corrected. But you're right that Sealer does it sometimes. There's a couple of guys that do it, just taking those booming shots
Yeah.
from distance, and then
Yeah.
it just caroms around, and then you have a odd man rush the other way,
Yeah.
and that's not going to help you in the long run. But yeah, I just I'm really frustrated for the guys that are playing well, that they don't have the support that they need. Now, the other thing that did not help was Travis Konechny leaving the game.
Right.
Looks like he just got accidentally slashed on the hand.
I don't
Or
think he got slashed. I think it was just I think he got his hand on the jersey and it just when he
it
was
caught or
it
something.
caught or something because it was like a weird kind of movement and maybe it bent it back. You felt bad. Although I got to say, I mean, I don't know what the cause of him getting too many men when you're on a power play. And you can't blame that on the coach, but it's on the players. But we don't know if it was on Konechny or somebody else who didn't acknowledge trying to leave the ice when he was on it. And he was really mad about that. That's a bad team play. Like, that's one where you don't see that very often. It's hard to get too many men on the ice when you're on the power play.
Yeah, and we don't know what the update is on
No.
Travis Konechny as of this recording. Hopefully, we'll find out soon, but man, it does not look good for him, and that is not good for the Flyers because Travis Konechny has been the absolute brightest spot for the team so far this season.
He has. Now, as you know, in the calendar, we're getting close to the end of the month again. And I guess at the end of the month is when we'll ask, where's Cam Atkinson,
It's
right?
the 18th.
Well, but we got a guy on the team who's not even practicing except if it's in Columbus. I think it's fair that every month we're going to have to ask, what is his status?
Yeah, I wonder what will get if Travis Konechny really is out. Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to actually call somebody up from the Phantoms to give them a shot, or are we just going to have like who we have now and just put Kiefer Bellows in, and that's
No,
your
you know what they're
lineup?
going to do? They're going to give Artem Anisimov one game, and they're probably going to call him up.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know,
That's my
man.
guess. That's not what I would do, but that's my guess.
Well, I guess we will find out in
We
time for the game against Montreal, and we are going to talk about that one coming up next. All right, Russ, we have to head to Montreal for the next game, and this is an interesting team. I actually really love Montreal right now for
yeah, I'm with you on
several
that.
reasons. You know, they have Martin St. Louis, and I find his coaching to be creative and baffling all at the same time. And you know, some of the decisions he makes on the lineup are questionable, but he seems to be able to motivate this team in a really positive way. And the other thing is that Montreal is in a known rebuild.
Yeah.
They have been really open and honest about the whole situation. They know what they have, they know what they're working toward. You know, they took Slavkovsky in the draft, surprising not everybody, but some people. And I think
Mhm.
that was with a much, clearer picture of what they wanted to do in the future and what kind of team they wanted to be. And so it's making this season for them really fascinating to watch.
It is. I'm, again, dynamics in this game. You're going to have Martin St. Louis going against John Tortorella, who he played for. So
Hmm.
that's the first time he's going to do that. That'll be interesting. He'll probably tell all his guys what to watch out for, and so that'll be fun. Josh Anderson also played for John. He's healthy and playing well, so
Yeah.
that's another thing. Gallagher has managed to stay healthy and looks really good this year. Nick Suzuki's a star, and Cole
Nick Suzuki
Caulfield.
is a Flyers killer too.
Oh
He
yeah,
always seems to score against the Flyers.
yeah,
So
and Caulfield's Caulfield. He's gonna be trouble too. So they with Slavkovsky, with all that, this is not going to be the easiest of games. I know Montreal loses games because their defense isn't great, but this is a game now with the Flyers, in a bad stretch, and they're going to get to practice tomorrow. And they did make a point of saying that on the broadcast. That practice tomorrow should include the power play because it looked disjointed, especially now that you're changing personnel. That power play should be worked on tomorrow. And, I think a few of those kinds of things, power play, I would get off the forechecking and playing away from the puck thing, and I would work on a little bit of line continuity and some power play in this practice and I wouldn't care how long the practice went. Like, I just don't. I mean, they've lost 5 in a row. You got to start trying to figure out what this team is going to look like with or without Konechny, and are you going to continue on this path of we're going to just be these forechecking dynamos, which again you might keep you in some games, but when you play the better teams, it's not.
yeah, Montreal lost to Columbus last night, so it's sort of making me feel a little better about the
Well, they
Flyers.
have something in common with the Flyers.
Yeah, they do. But it seems like Columbus is like we're the most broken team ever, and we're
Yeah,
going to win despite that. But I think the
but they're at
Flyers need.
home. Maybe there's a little home cooking there for them, right? Because they
Yeah,
seem to be playing better at home while they're broken, and I could see that.
yeah, I think that's part of it too. But I just think that the Flyers are going to have to work a lot harder than you might assume in order to win this one. And I'm just really
I think harder
hopeful.
on offense. Like, I'm looking for, I want to look for better breakouts. I'm looking for better passes. I'm looking for guys, cutting to the net. I'm looking for, do an occasional wraparound. If you're Morgan Frost or someone like Farabee, try it. I mean, nobody's trying stuff like that. Nobody's shooting anything off the backboards. Nobody's doing anything offensive other than like robotic forechecking. And against a team like Montreal where they have offensive talent, that could be bad. If they get up in that game, that could be a little worried. Now you can come back against a team like Montreal, but again, you
They
don't
shouldn't
want to.
have to, though. That's
They
the
shouldn't
point.
have to. Right.
So, yeah, I think that Montreal is going to be a good challenge for the Flyers, and also a good opportunity to get back, and right the ship a little bit,
Yeah.
and come out of it feeling a little bit better about yourself. I'm hoping that maybe Scott Lawton can have a breakout this game. I feel like he's been solid, but quiet solid. And so I would like to see him get on the scoreboard in this one and maybe reestablish himself as the guy, the go-to extra guy, especially if Travis Konechny is out. He's the kind of guy that has to step up.
He is, but he's doing so many things. It's hard for me to be critical of Scott Lawton because of the bump up
Mhm.
in where he's playing, how many minutes. It's a lot.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. He's been solid, but a quiet solid.
Right.
So, would like to see him get back on the scoreboard, like I said. But yeah, should be an interesting game. We will definitely be talking about it on Monday's show. Wrapping up with our Flyers fun thing, because the Flyers were in Boston, they got to spend a little bit of time with the Hayes family up there, and a bunch of the team were hanging out with Kevin Hayes's nephew Beau, who is absolutely adorable, and Carter Hartman. He's just a goofy goalie guy
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
playing like floor hockey in the basement with Beau, and pretending to make saves and pretending to fight and everything. I think
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it's just so cute.
He's
And
got the whole Franklin board set up, though, thing. I like that. I wish I had
yeah,
that when I was a kid.
I know, right? Just like a full-on real hockey rink in your basement. I mean, obviously just like street hockey-ish, but
Yeah, and
with
hopefully
boards and
somebody was in
everything.
the background saying, "Kinda hot," makes the save.
Yeah. The whole thing is absolutely adorable, but so that warms the heart and makes you feel good about the team being in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we will wrap things up for the day. We'll be back again on Monday with that recap of the Habs game. We'll have our nemesis of the week as well. Thinking it might be like the end of Twitter, might be my
It
nemesis
it
of the
could be. It's
week.
gonna impact the show a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So, as a reminder, you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. You can catch us over on YouTube. We've got that new Instagram at Locked On Flyers, so you can message us there. I'm Rachel, and I'm our Miriam pretty much everywhere.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology pretty much everywhere, or you can call me at 867-5309.
All right, Jenny. Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on Odyssey, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.